say something so I can see that it's moving?
Good afternoon.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. This is the March 5th meeting of the New London Housing Commission. We have much to cover as we plan ahead for our April 5th second forum, and much of the discussion today will revolve around interim communication and getting out to the community to sort of prepare for that in some regards, to the extent we feel it's clear and supportive to the mission. So thank you for coming. We do have, bless you.
Excuse me.
We have a quorum. Amy, if you would please serve as a voting member. Absolutely. Now that we're being recorded, I need to say that. Yeah. And Mike said he will be here, but is not here currently. But we do have a quorum. I will remind you, please, if I may, that at next meeting, I would like to have a discussion of the rules of procedure for the New London Housing Commission. I put out a copy of that to you previously. It's also on the webpage if you can't find that. It's our commitment to review that from time to time to make sure it fits our mission, our pattern for behavior, and our responsibilities. So it's good to read through it again. Just take a read through. If it doesn't feel right or isn't current, please come prepared to make any suggestions. Typos are included. So I have my copy sitting on my desk ready to reread. Housing Commission data is next on the agenda. I wanted to update you if you haven't heard. I felt it was necessary that the Housing Commission be very clear as to one of the statistics that was reported by one of the consultants in our first forum, which has to do with the housing cost burdening in our community. And if you've been reading the Intertown Record or other media, there's Mike. Hey, Mike. Then you would understand what I'm talking about. The statistic that was used and reported by our consultants was 34% of our community is under a housing cost burden, which means that it's estimated that they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. I wanted to clarify that because after researching this matter further with our consultant, I learned an awful lot. First of all, ratios and statistics are very helpful in looking at different issues, but if they're taken out of context, they're not highly applicable. And so what I found was that this 34% of the community being housing cost burdened was not being used properly with respect to, I believe, discussions about the police station. So if you attended or looked at the recording of the Police Facilities Committee meeting on February 26th, you would have heard me speak out to try to clarify that, simply from a standpoint of making sure that data and facts are being used correctly, not to argue that the Housing Commission is for or against the police station. That's not our job, and certainly not mine as the chairman this year. So, but I wanted to alert you, and also I submitted my comments to the Intertown Record in letter format, so you will read that today in your issue if you didn't read it digitally yesterday, but it's in the issue that came out in print today. And there's all kinds of discussion, of course, about facts, and that's very important that the police station be properly considered and evaluated and that all the facts get out.
And you're in municipal matters.
And I'm in municipal matters.
That just came out as well.
Well, I want
So
to
it's covered there as well.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to assure you that I don't seek that kind of profile. That's not my
Highly
favorite.
published.
Not my favorite place to be. And I try to do it tastefully and fairly because we need to stay in our lane and do a good job on housing. And that's been my purpose from day one. So you'll see that. I think that's all I have to say about that. Let's see. Rules of procedure. Oh yeah, I did print out municipal matters. There it is, right there. And municipal matters has taken a new format. Looks terrific.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Looks really good.
We might have the person in the room responsible with the updated look.
Oh, the updated format? Nice.
Yeah?
Very nice.
Whoa. That's really terrific.
Thank you.
I mean, it was good before, but now it's really good. I mean, it started out serving the purpose,
Great.
and this has got some real style to it. Thank you. Okay, so schedule overview. We're moving fast, as we like to do. In 7 days is town meeting on the 12th, election day, of course, before that. 5 more days after that, we have our meeting on March 17th. 19 days later is the public forum, April 5th. So we will probably need to schedule another meeting. No, I don't think so. I don't think Steve says we need to meet after the 17th. But we may want to have a logistics meeting with people putting it together and some of the details. I will relate to you that Colby Sawyer College had a broken pipe in Wheeler Hall, so Wheeler Hall may not be available to us. I spoke with Steve Whitman today on a couple of things, and I alerted him. I said we're going to be on Monday, Adam and I and Amy are meeting with Colby Sawyer administrative people to look at other options of where the meeting could be held. Steve reiterated, and I discussed with him, that the meeting needs to be more interactive than we had before. The first one, of course, was not as much interactive because we were getting a lot of facts out. So we couldn't have a lot of Q&A just by virtue of the length of the meeting. But this next one is by design going to be far more engaging of the public, and therefore an auditorium type of a setup would not be conducive. So Adam and I and Amy are going to see what's available, and we will report back. But we may end up with a plan B of some kind. My feeling is, and we'll see what's available, that even if Wheeler Hall is not in stellar condition, we don't need a whole lot of food and setup as long as the AV works and we can get tables in there and the screen works as far as the slides are concerned. So, it doesn't need to be highly polished. I think having a flat floor and a place where we can put tables is really important. So we'll report back to you on that on the 17th. Also, as a reminder, if, and I say if, the Housing Commission finds itself where it wants to propose zoning revisions or regulatory change that is to be voted on in March of 2026, we will need to have that formulated by mid-September. And remembering back to when it happened before, we made some proposals. Obviously, we proposed them in our meetings as the Housing Commission, and then we propose them to the Planning Board, and then we have discussions, and then the Planning Board decides whether they're going to adopt our recommendations and make it their own warrant article. But remembering back that getting this all done after Labor Day hits means we get on our horses right away and get it done. So the more thinking we can have in place before July, August hits, when a lot of people, including me, check out a little bit, then that's better. So just as a reminder that the things start to heat up, and if we aren't prepared when we hit the ground after Labor Day, it can be kind of a scramble. So we will be prepared. Terrific, thank you. Next, we want to talk about interim planning and action steps. This has to do with preparing some sort of communication that we've all been thinking about a bit, and we have some drafts here to talk about in a minute. Knowing that they need to be in sync with what our consultants are planning to do at the April forum, and I've talked to Steve about that today. He's going to be lockstep with us with whatever we do. He's been seeing what we're doing and supports it entirely. So we're in a good place in that respect. We are blessed in many respects by being introduced to Kelsey Clark, who has been in town for a long time, but Adam knew of her capabilities, and Adam and Kelsey and I met to see what she might be able to do to help us with this communication, because, of course, the key piece is content, but also the piece, whatever we decide to put out, needs to be done properly, graphically, and needs to be put out through media that's effective. So Kelsey's had lots of experience in that, and I won't speak for her. She can give us a little background in a moment. As a reminder, this piece that we put out, whatever it may be, is to keep people thinking about the Housing Commission, thinking about housing issues, mindful of some of the facts and issues that we presented in our first forum, and kind of prepare people for the second forum. There will be the save the date flyer is out. You have that. I have extra copies for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll also have a flyer that'll be put out for the April 5th forum itself, its own, here it is, announcement, not a save the date, but a real flyer announcement, which you may remember was done as a mailer before, working in conjunction with the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission. So we'll need to put that as well, but that's down the road. So that being said, let me hand out to you, I think you've received this previously in emails that I've sent, but just so we're all talking off the same song sheet. Here is Kelsey's proposal. Do you have yours? This one for you? Best one down
Yeah,
to Mark.
there were some when we walked in.
Oh, actually, Adam made a copy, so
Yeah.
you're good, okay, all right, you got it,
I
sorry.
didn't make a copy of that, or I did, but I know I left them on the copier, or Zach's comments.
On the back.
I think you have on that other.
This, yes, I have that.
It does, and I just realized I walked out and left my printer.
It's all right.
Yeah, my philosophy is, if you have extra paper, it's helpful, because people need to be in the same sheet. So, everybody has a copy of that. I also have a copy of what Zach sent to us, and I reworked a little bit, mostly to get it on 2 pages, because even in 2-page format, it's too many. So, there you go. But it put it in a format that I thought was a little bit better. There you go.
Thank you.
And then the third thing I will hand out to you is Marilyn put a lot of thought into what might work. She said graphically, I'm not a graphics person, but here's what I was thinking. So the next 1-pager I'll hand to you is from Marilyn. She said, I can't make the meeting, but let me spend some time thinking about it,
The cord.
and which I appreciate. There you go. So I thought a good place to start would be, Kelsey, if you'd spend a few minutes telling us about what you do, and obviously now we know you did municipal matters. We know that some of your talents, but if you'd give us some background and then walk us through the proposal, things that you had thought we might be interested in doing, because it has a lot of flexibility in it.
Correct.
And then we can talk about content and move to the next step.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
So, about myself, where do I begin? I have a long history with the town of New London. My dad, my grandfather, my husband, and myself have all either worked for or are currently working for the town of New London. So we have a long family history of serving the town. I had the opportunity to work under Jessie Levine when she was here as the town administrator, and I learned a lot from her. So I'm excited to kind of be back in the mix and getting to work with people, again, in the municipal sector. My current job is full-time marketing for a local real estate firm. We are connected with an international franchise, so I have a lot of experience with marketing, getting messaging out there, and trying to connect with people in various forms of communication, and honestly, trying to stretch a dollar. Everyone wants their dollar to go further, so thinking outside of the box and finding ways that we can communicate with the most amount of people for the smallest investment. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell. Actually, I guess that's not totally true. I am a graphic designer as well. I have a graphic design degree from Colby Sawyer College, so.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, so the proposals in front of you today, I did 2. The first one is based on the conversation that Peter and Adam and I had, and kind of the first ideas we had thought about. Over the last weeks, I have continued to think about it, and I'm like, what can we do to go even further with this idea? So the first, really the only differences are the scope of the work, the first bullet. So the first option includes one full-page ad in the shopper. The second option includes 2 quarter-page ads plus 1 half-page ad. My thought behind that was we know that repetition works in advertising. So if we can get in front of eyes more frequently, instead of just one big splash, we have a higher likelihood of people seeing the message and retaining the message, retaining the work that the commission is doing. So that's why I put that together. It's obviously the total cost is approximately $100 more, but you're being seen 3 weeks in a row instead of just one and done. So. Additionally, it includes the purchase of email addresses that are associated with people living in the town of New London. So every time you sign up for a mailing list or you sign up for a coupon code and you're giving that information, all of that data is flying through the sky and is now available to anyone who wants to purchase it. It's a great way to connect with people, and thankfully it has an unsubscribe button, so it follows all of the federal regulations for unsubscribe and do not mail. So you don't have any concerns about that. So, and I guess that's really it. We obviously have the digital imagery in there. Adam and Peter and I had talked about that because I said, you know, social media is a great way to get messaging out there. You can do paid advertising. It's a really budget-friendly option. Unfortunately, there are some restrictions with the town and using a town page for that type of purpose. So we kind of thought about this a little bit and we said, all right, well, we can't do that at the commission level, but I could still create these so that they could be used for emails, they could be used for any type of website or web page, and then if the commissioners felt like using them personally, they would be available but not required to be used. But you'd have something that would have the same look and feel as the ads that people are seeing in print. So I think that's.
I have some questions, and these are kind of redundant because we talked about this when we met, but I think it'd be helpful for the commission to hear the answers and your thoughts on this. I was interested, by the way, anecdotally, the Intertown Record is now allowing advertisements for private letters. For if you look at the issue that came out just today, and even I think last week, the people have purchased advertising space for a letter, which I guess is fine. I'm not against it. I hadn't seen that before. And so, have you had a chance to see what I'm talking about?
I haven't, but I think they have offered that a little bit in the past because they have a character count. So if your letter to the editor is under a certain amount of characters, they'll include it. But if it's over a certain amount, then they require you to pay to put it in there.
Oh, really?
I believe is their practice, but I could be incorrect.
Is it words or letter or characters?
I'm not sure.
Because I didn't know what it was, and when I did my letter, I said, oops, I wonder if I should be over 500. I just randomly said 500.
Right.
So I tried to get it, but it was words, not characters. So.
It may be.
But she put it in as a letter, not as an ad, because I didn't pay for it.
Annette Vogel owns the paper. She's really great to work with, so she is oftentimes including things that she thinks are really important to the community. So.
Well, the reason I mentioned it is my question. So, better off with the shopper versus the Intertown Record, or maybe both? Or tell us about each one, their strengths and weaknesses, and why you recommend the shopper.
Definitely. So the shopper is great because it's direct delivered to everyone's mailbox. Everyone's getting a chance to see this that lives in the town of New London. Obviously, one of the downfalls is it is going to a wide distribution. So there's people in Croydon and in Henniker and in Hopkinton that are also seeing it that aren't necessarily your target audience. However, I think it was something that Adam and I were talking about was those people are also feeling this issue with housing. So maybe it's not a bad idea to get your ideas out there and show that you guys are leading the charge in this scenario. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that you're reaching more people than your intended target. Again, it is a very cost-effective way of doing it. Their ad prices are fairly low for how many people you're going to reach and how many boxes it's going to arrive in. The issue with the Intertown is that you have to have a subscription to get it. It's no longer available in print unless you have a print subscription mailed to your mailbox.
Oh, really? So you can't go to the drugstore and find.
Unfortunately.
It's been for a while now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because of rising costs, they switched to that model. So that's why we've actually stopped advertising in there because it's not available to everyone wherever it's easiest to purchase it, they have to get the subscription, and we find that that's a little bit of a deterrent when it comes to a lot of people, so.
So your proposal, we're talking about option one just right now, is a full page in the shopper, and that costs $470 for 1 week, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that in color or black and white?
That's black and white. The color is approximately 3 times more than that.
Ooh. Okay. Have to keep that in mind. Okay, and then option 2, Kelsey?
Yep. So the only difference, again, is that we would have those 2 quarter-page black and white ads. So those would go in on March 19th and March 26th. And then that half-page ad on April 4th, which would be right before the next forum. So my thought was half of that could be some of the statistics we wanted to include, and half of it could be a reminder that the forum is upcoming and to save the date.
What is the deadline? How much in advance of the actual publication is the deadline set? So for the 19th, when would we have to have something in?
By March 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Are the dates, you've got dates in option 2, but there's no dates in option 1. Are the dates the same?
So the dates, I didn't include in option 1 because I wasn't sure how close you would want it to show up before the forum, if you'd want it to show up that week, or if you'd want it to show up the week before, assuming that there's going to be a save the date the week of. So,
Because this was your one and done, splash.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I would just point out quickly, the difference between these two proposals simply as a price structure is about $100.
Yeah.
So I'm not as concerned, I like to spend our money carefully, don't get me wrong, this is tax dollars at work. But for $100, effectiveness is much more important to me than $100.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Question I have about color versus black and white. How does color sit as a feeling for people when they, I don't think our image needs to be color for pictures of housing or what have you, but as far as grabbing attention, what do people feel about black and white in the shopper versus color?
I have a question about that. So during holiday season, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, they do this like bleed of color. So sometimes you see an ad and it has just a strip of color. It's not color all the way through. So is that considered color and you pay the same price no matter how much?
It is, unfortunately, it is.
I thought that might be a good way for us to just get.
Yeah, or even a
spot,
surround.
Like
Yep.
just a little
Yeah.
spot of color.
Buy 2 ads.
What? Buy 2.
One little bitty ad in color saying, look over here. And put the rest of it in black.
Just a big arrow.
Yeah. A red one.
Well, you were going to say something, Nancy?
I think if it's a full page thing, that's going to be eye-catching enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think we have to be flashy with color.
I don't struggle with narcissism, but I really do enjoy the logo, the Paths Home logo that we've generated. It feels right to me, and it's got a little bit of color, but other than that, I don't think we really need color.
No. And
Could the logo be just black,
Yeah, yeah,
verb form of two?
Oh, yeah.
Grayscale.
Yeah.
Yes.
That probably would still look fine.
yeah, look fine. It is who we are, and these are tax dollars, so let's not go crazy. I think it's important to talk about,
No, I'm laughing because that was our mantra when I worked for the state, was never bring any presentation of the legislature in color. We didn't want them to think we were overspending.
right. No, we certainly don't want to do that. But I think the discussion about the format's really important before we get into content, because it drives shape and how much we can fit in. The repetition is something I think we need to think about, and I bounced that off Steve Whitman. I said, how's it feel to you? He only had about 5 minutes to think about it, and he said, I'm just not sure if we need multiple messages, whether they'd be different is important. Do we have that much to get out that we need to split our message in two pieces? Or are we just going to say the same thing over again? In which case, maybe it's not really necessary. So he said, why don't you just do it incrementally? Well, we can't, because we're going to blow our budget on one big page versus some multiple pages, smaller advertisements. So I guess we need to talk about first, do we really want to put something out that is in a repetitive format, or at least repetitive issuance, maybe not the same message, keeping in mind that as we get close to April 5th, we do want to put something out that says, here's the date, please come, join us, or whatever.
How much is a quarter page ad, Kelsey?
I think their prices just went up, and I believe they're 127.
127?
Yes.
So is there almost like a,
That's black and white.
I'm just wondering if there's almost a hybrid option between the two, so that if we did, the full page that really had the room to communicate the bulk of the messaging in one issue, that then maybe a couple weeks later, you have just the little quarter page ad that's pretty affordable, that could simply be a QR code to our website that's reminding us of the piece that was in maybe 2 editions before, so that you sort of get the big splashy one, then we can house that internally, and then just have a relatively affordable follow-up a couple weeks later.
Okay.
I don't know if that's,
Definitely an option. I mean, they've got a variety of sizes. So they've got the quarter, they've got a 3/16, I think they call it a 5/8. And then there's also the 3/16 is about 3.75 by 3.75. So that might be perfect for that instance. So if you did a larger ad for the first one and then kind of do those follow-ups with just the QR code that links to the web page that has that full page, you could get the same amount of leverage ideally. Now that's assuming someone is going to scan the code. That's where you kind of fall down. But we do have the ability to track that, so we could see how effective it is.
Yep.
And then know, for further publications, does that make sense to do?
yeah, that's true.
So if we did,
So does that mean you're thinking about maybe doing like a 3-parter? We do a bigger thing, a smaller thing, and a smaller thing? Or a big thing and roughly the same size, 2 in a row after that? Like, so a
Yeah.
total of 3 blasting kind of,
So if you, I'm just trying to look at my calendar, as far as the publication date, if you did a full page, I mean, when is the soonest you think that could hit with your schedule to actually get it together, get it reviewed, get it submitted?
I don't have a calendar right in front of me, I apologize. I think we could realistically get that in for the 12th, as long as everyone's comfortable with being responsive.
Yep. So the 12th deadline would then get it in
For the
the 19th?
Yep.
So then,
If not, we'd be pushed out to the 26th for publication, so.
it's getting too close.
that's
Right.
too close.
We got to hit the 12th.
Yeah.
Today's the 5th, that's a week.
Right.
and so then there's,
The 26th goes in on the
19th.
19th.
The week before,
Week before.
7 days before.
so 19.
Oh, no, but if you go to them on the 26th, you're gonna get published on the 2nd.
Correct. Yep.
And so we already have a advertisement for April 5th planned outside of this work, right? That Steve and his,
I'm sorry, I was thinking.
do we already have an ad for the 5th that Steve and his folks are placing?
Not yet produced. We
Okay.
need to do that.
Are they,
But that is the plan, right?
Yes.
And that would go in which edition?
I think we were going to talk about this on the 17th, but that's getting,
it's
awfully
getting
tight.
close,
That's,
right?
Because
yeah.
I'm just thinking if we, that might mean if we have one of those in one of the weeks, either the 26th or the 2nd, then maybe this only needs to do one other day so that we don't end up with a,
Right.
Like
know,
we do 2
duplication.
things
Right,
versus 3 things.
yeah, I
Right.
think
with
maybe,
Kelsey,
maybe 2 for
things.
this and 1 for the real event.
Right,
Yeah,
yep.
I think,
Did anybody see the full page by the Police Facilities Committee in the shopper? Full page ad?
I did.
yeah. I glanced
Very
at it.
eye-catching. Did you do that?
I did not,
Oh.
no.
eye-catching, join us in big, huge letters,
Yep.
black and white. And it was for the meeting that was on the 26th, at which I made a comment, and there's another one coming up on the 8th, I think.
I must have seen it, I don't remember.
And so I guess I'm kind of thinking, let's get out there with a full page.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And then I do like the idea of doing something smaller later,
Yep,
less info, because we're gonna have that one big thing right before.
If you could do it smaller, out of bullet points and the QR code, it takes you to the bigger picture.
yep.
Remind, because people forget.
And so is it more realistic to think, so if we're meeting on the 17th, Steve's group would have to turn their ad around in 48 hours to get it in the following week, which makes me think that perhaps they would be in the week after that, the 2nd, just 3 days before, so that maybe we should plan on this work hitting the full size on the 19th and the small one on the 26th.
yep, that makes,
So then we hit 3 consecutive weeks. We just know we're ready to move forward on this faster than they might be able to move forward on theirs.
Agreed.
Okay.
Well,
Or are you thinking that
well,
they'll,
I'm just thinking if he's putting the announcement for the meeting out on April 2nd, that's only 3 days later for the event. That's too close.
so do you think he'll be able to turn things around for the 19th?
well, is there
Just
any
tell
way
him he
we
has to.
Okay.
just give him a heads up before? I mean,
I
like,
mean, he can have a heads up now.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And
We can also reference the meeting in whatever we.
I was gonna
Right.
say, we
Right.
could also
There's no-
include
no
it.
downside to doing that.
Right.
So it could sort of serve double duty.
Right, and so maybe we have the little one ready to go that if they can't hit the deadline, then we're ready to hit the deadline. If they do hit it for the 26th, then we have it for the 2nd to just sort of follow up a couple days
And would that
before.
be littler than the second one, or same size?
Who's that?
Who's
Sneaking in.
So did I.
Do you think that would be a littler than the second one that we want to do, or the same size? I'm just talking size.
Well, I think it would be littler because the first one we'd be doing the full page.
Right,
Right.
So then we'd do something smaller.
scale down.
Right, but I'm saying if we have to put in one because I'm talking about what you just said like a minute
So I think
ago.
we would be, from this proposal, we would be planning on doing a full page in a week and a half.
Right,
And then Steve would be the next week with whatever size they have planned. I guess we'll learn more about that on the 17th.
right.
And then the following week after that, we would do something pretty small, but referencing back to our materials online where we can house the ad that we did in the first week.
Okay, so
Sorry
we're
if
still
that
just
was a-
doing two?
Yep.
Okay, got
And
it.
we may find, after we talk to him, that he needs more notoriety for that March 26th notice, because that's the announcement for the actual event. In which case, we're beefing it up from an 8th or whatever to a half, because it is the notice.
And I'm happy to share my files if that helps him in any way. He can take my stuff and manipulate it, so there's already some context for him, if that's
Yep.
helpful.
Yep. I don't know if you met with Liz Kelly. She's really good, and so the two of you speak the same language. Yeah. Yep.
All right, do you want to talk content?
Yes, so what we're talking about, and this full page is also kind of a save the date as well. We need to get an announcement in there somewhere. But it's also as a reminder of some key facts, right? Okay. We ready?
Before we jump into that, though, do we
Yeah.
have to update any of these cost-wise? I mean, we've kind of strayed from exactly what she's proposed.
We've done a hybrid.
Yeah, so I can update that and send it over.
Okay.
If that's helpful, because I don't know the smaller size cost right off the top of my head.
Okay.
So,
Well, and I think what we're saying, correct me if I'm
So we
wrong,
want option two.
is that, yes, but we want a full page to start,
Not
and
the
then we're
half.
adding a half page at some time in the future because it has to be more of the formal announcement.
Right.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
One
so
half,
a
one
full
half,
page and a half page.
right,
Yep.
one and a half.
And thank you for your patience with,
Of course.
we're working through this. And you have what you need? Did you get the paperwork? Yes, I did. Okay, good, thanks. Good. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about content.
So this sheet that Marilyn worked on,
Yes.
is that, I guess I'm a little bit confused. Are these her ideas of what some of the content should be in these ads?
Well, I'll try to speak for her, which is unfair, but since she's not here, I think what she was trying to do is to keep it on one page, which is good, was to use an intro to remind people of why we were here headed towards this phase 2, which is visioning, and using it as a way of alerting people that it is the next event, phase 2, that we're headed into. I don't see an awful lot of facts here, but it was more of a notice kind of thing. She used an intro to say, here's the program. November's public forum gave us the opportunity to learn about and discuss existing land uses, demographics, et cetera. Underlying our discussion is a recognition of the fact that at the present time, we can't offer suitable housing for all levels of our current population. So that speaks to diversity. And then what's next sort of hits you as to, oh yeah, they're right, we got another event coming up. And then we have the opportunity to gather again and discuss how to best manage these housing challenges in our community, both now and in the future. What do we want our town to look like? Please join the Housing Commission and your fellow citizens to help envision potential housing solutions which are the best fit for New London. And it looks like she stepped up the font a little bit. This will prepare us for the final phase 3 pathway stage when the community will consider the how. How do we bring what we have envisioned to reality? It's,
Nice flow.
yeah. So there aren't any facts there, but it's well done.
I don't know that we need to do facts like this.
Yeah.
I think this is good that it
Yeah.
doesn't talk about details.
You don't want to look like we're making up anybody's mind. Right, or shoving anything down their throat. I heard that one more time.
Really avoid that, because that's, the word housing commission sounds like we're gonna decide.
Right.
Good point.
So much for my 2 cents.
It's good. No, it's a good point. Thank you. We have to, these are sensitive issues, and the way people perceive us is very important for getting our mission solved. We don't have the key findings, just to raise your attention to the fact that, is that,
What do you want to change what we've got? I mean, that's what we're really trying to ask these people. We've got all the stuff here, we need more housing. If we're gonna keep up the level of services, et cetera, we need to make a move.
yep, yep.
Peter, are you saying that because there's no keys, meaning data, that we might be losing?
No, not so much data. Good question. You know the 5 key findings?
Yep,
You remember seeing it, right?
yep.
Frankly, I think the graphics for that doesn't work for me because each one of those 5 key findings has little letters within it.
Right.
And my eyes are still pretty good, thank goodness, but you can't read it very well. So then you have to explain it next to the block, and then it takes up a whole page.
Right, but that's, I mean, even though this, for example, this sheet has a good flow, and I'm sure that Kelsey can weigh in, but to me, this just looks like words, 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 a little bit of picture, words, words, some bigger font, and people just glaze. They just glaze over words. They're not really reading them. So we have to figure out how to give the information graphically that grabs and gives and forces them through the graphics to pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree. I mean, I think this can be wordsmithed a little bit. I think as a good first step, this is great, actually. And I think, you know, we could probably reduce the number of words by a third if we sort of put our heads together to think through that. And then, you know, I agree that we don't want to include any data because that's going to make people feel feelings that we don't necessarily want right now. I'm sure, and maybe Kelsey, you can help us, just sort of make this a titch more visual, to sort of say with either icons or imagery or whatever, or even just a selective bolding of text here and there to make it pop a bit more. But
Yeah,
mean,
so, oops, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the save the date, it was what do you envision? Which, I'm not saying it's perfect, but could be one idea of this whole paragraph, right? It's really whittling it down, but that's really what we're asking them. What do you want it to, Ann, does that make sense to what you just said? Do you want?
like, what do you
So,
want?
I like just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and no other words. Because this is really, in a nutshell, we got diversity, we have crops, prices, inventory so low, aging house stock, affordability challenges. How are we gonna plan for the future?
You mean not all the verbiage, just,
Yeah, I mean, we can have the verbiage someplace, but just to eye-catching, make it, yeah. Those are the points.
So you're suggesting take those points and get them in this one page somewhere?
Yeah.
Here's what we learned in number 1.
I like this graphic. Those 3 things I found very helpful.
oh,
Eye-catching, helpful.
right.
Said we did discover, things we discovered
Mhm.
were at least
Well-
5 things.
Yeah, well, Marilyn, I don't know if do you have this one pager from Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay.
I will. Yes.
She was using those, she was not struggling with the graphic itself, but that concept would be
Yes,
carried on
but
this page?
If you number it, it doesn't make people think they have to read the story.
Right,
Right.
It's like bulleting.
okay.
I think where I might be going is just to get those 5 bullets in this first section here. I mean, we perhaps ought to tell people what we've learned in phase 1. We learned these 5 things. And then what's next? Because I think first of all, less fodder, as Neil said, we get people feeling about stuff. Let's just get the information out there without getting into the weeds.
Mhm.
And then say, okay, and I don't know quite how to say this, but phase 2, and I'd really like to emphasize the you, community, in that part of the conversation, not as Susan Peters alluded. And as well as with, the Housing Commission didn't make this stuff up. And we're not forcing, and not force feeding anybody on this. You're gonna tell us. I mean, I've heard it a lot, and I don't even participate in a lot of those conversations, but there's a lot of angst about, well, you're the big government, and you're telling us we need to do this. And if you think that's bad, I mean, I'd rather they figure this out on their own, because the government, and not the local government, will be telling us what to do if we don't get off our butt duffs and do stuff.
Yeah, state government.
My phone wasn't hot. That's all right, though.
Yeah, your point's well taken, and I think you'd mentioned this before, either in email or maybe in a meeting, Mike. It's a really good point, the explanation that you is the community.
Right.
And we didn't make this up, we're responding.
Well, we're working for you. We want you to tell us, blah, blah, blah.
That's what should be under the phase 2
Yeah.
envisioning. The other part of this is, I don't have a problem with this being a handout when people come in. Right.
Well, I was just gonna say, maybe what we do is take the details and,
Let them read it. Not that they will, but anyway.
Bulleted these things under discovery and then vision, saying, you must help us make this vision.
yep.
Very just forthright.
I'm just thinking about the point of adding a couple of facts, which I agree with, in the phase 1 of like what are the sort of really salient points that we learned, and I just sort of went down through, and obviously there's a lot of text on this, and I think we could pare down and maybe pick like one thing from each section. And then even if it's like a, instead of doing bullets, that, if we, for the first one, want to hit that 90% of, 90% single family in New London, and there's a little, single family house, or then, a little money sign that the average assessed value is 619, and then the current rental vacancy rate 1%. I mean, I think we can do that in very few words, 1 or 2 words, honestly, for each point, and sort of hit the thing from each of these that is sort of most jarring, to sort of grab people's attention.
Yeah, I like that idea.
To keep
I
it
like the
simple
little
and-
icon, less words, icon
Yeah.
messaging.
With a little bit of meat on.
Yeah, I mean, some political campaigns lately that have been very successful with 3 to 4 word slogans. So costs are high, whatever, we could distill that down to things that will just catch everybody's eye and be easily remembered. And I think at least 3, even if we just include 3 of the most important of those 5, that's probably sufficient.
To Adam's point too, including some of those facts are going to give people a reason to want to come and help figure out the next steps. Oh, I didn't realize that there's this shortage. I didn't realize this. So giving them a little bit to go off of and be interested and be like, okay, how are we going to fix this, might help them decide to come to the next forum too.
Because we still have like with police station, they're still on are we really going to go do this? I thought we were going to just, fix it. And there'll be those people that are saying, wait, why do we need that? I mean, we have to move the needle.
So what Adam's suggesting is put just a little bit of meat on the bones, so we're not
Yep.
just waving our arms around,
Yes.
but only like 1 per. Yeah.
And the things that are not debatable, I mean, the median assessed value is the median assessed
Assessed
value.
value.
The vacancy rate is the vacancy rate. I mean, those are things that we can't really get into a heated exchange over.
It's not debatable.
Right. I mean, I think that one of the most interesting parts, and it doesn't seem that significant, but that I learned there is that the average age of our multifamily is 1929. I mean, that was kind of surprising, especially when you look at, we don't have that many in general. So the fact that Cottage Lane being like 2012 or whenever that was built, having 5 of them wasn't enough to bring up the median age more than some of them are really old.
There's going to be like some 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some. We are in New England.
Yep.
It makes you wonder the condition of them too, because there are
Yep.
no standards, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so these are great ideas. How are we going to get it done?
While we're doing ideas, what's next part? I think if they've got too much of a blank page, people are gonna have a hard time figuring out what next might look like. And so, I think we could do it, here are some of the ways that it could be done. Well, I know, but that's the message I'm trying to get to, and put up pictures of the front house, back house, and some cluster development, and that's just a couple of different scenarios of something that might be attractive.
You're talking about for the event itself, Mike?
For the event itself.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
For what's next. Just pictures, no words, just pictures.
Not on this piece, but for the event itself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, certainly for the event.
Okay.
I would want to come into the meeting with something to think about, rather than being asked to come up with my own ideas of what it might look like. I think that becomes
Yeah.
just chaotic.
Right.
Well, and then they can tear apart the picture.
Right, that's,
But, okay, yeah, I mean,
Well, to
so
your,
that's what they do.
but these are just ideas.
Right.
You don't like that idea, okay.
Mike,
just
to
a
your,
jumping-
to your point, and we talked about this at our last meeting, Adam and I are going to take a drive around, I don't know, next week sometime. I've bought a good digital camera several years ago to take pictures, and now I just use my iPhone. But I have a good phone, a good camera, and we're going to take pictures of building structures, multifamily, ADUs, architecture in town. And I told Steve we'll be sending them to him, and he can decide how to show them in the actual forum. So we're going to be doing that at the forum.
That wouldn't be for this. Yeah.
But you're right, we're going to show them things so they can react to them. We're not going to say, what kind of housing do you think we ought to do? We're going to say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Right, right,
Your own material.
okay,
Encourage to get more into tunnel commission.
right. Decisions, right. Okay,
And I don't really have, the phase 2 and phase 1 icons, I feel like those are unto us in this commission. And I know they're part of our branding of this whole piece, but I don't think the public knows that, and nor do we have to school them on that. We have enough to give them and decide upon and get them interested. Whether it's the discovery phase, that only confuses them. What do you mean phase? What is that? Phase, they don't,
I can imagine removing the words phase, like phase 1 and 2, and just leaving the discovery and visioning, because I think that
that
just,
sounds good.
like decomplicates it as the
Right.
pitch.
so
Yep.
true.
And I'm also, like, thinking purely in terms of what would go in the shopper. I think we can, we could even consider removing phase 3, because that's very important for what's coming next, and we can talk about that till we're blue in the face during phase 2. But the goal, I think, is just to get people to show up, right? So we don't need to, I guess, maybe muddy the waters by saying, oh, there's going to be another one later, too. So let's just maybe consider removing that and focus, right, guys, and focus more on, here's what we learned. Now come join us so that you can be heard.
And then we can talk about the pathways stage, if you will. I agree, phase is a bad word. That comes from the HOP grant, by the way. That was
Oh, no, I know, I just.
because I'm
it just-
tying this all to the HOP grant so we get our money back. Just so you know. So, but it's a really good point. But we can allude to the, Marilyn does, she said this will prepare us for the final phase. We can talk about something else. Pathways, when the community will consider the how. So we don't have to show the icon, we can just have that as the, is that what you're saying?
I would use the two icons, discovery and vision. I like those.
Okay? And let the,
Yeah, they're like, but
Yeah,
without the
there you go.
phases part.
okay. All right.
We need you.
Yeah, Mike's point, we need, and Marilyn wonderfully, she worked really hard on this. She does say we have the opportunity to gather again to discuss how to best manage these housing challenges in our community, both now and in the future. What do we want our town to look like? Please join the Housing Commission. I think stressing more the you is
What
better.
do you want your town to look like?
Yeah.
We need your help.
Yeah, I would almost remove that first sentence
Yep.
and just say, what do you want the town, sort of pose it as a provocative question that catches people's eye.
Yeah, and I would say, what would you like to see our town look like? Or something. But
Yeah, soften
you,
it.
I mean, there's not a we, because
Right.
we implies the commission.
Right.
Yeah,
And so, what would you like our town to look like?
I want it to look just the way it is.
Oh, I know, I kept my mouth shut.
Well, and your point's well taken, where the lawyers say, don't ask a question if you know the answer, right? And the answer might be, we don't want it to change. So I understand you're struggling with the you part. Maybe you have to be careful about how we do that. Instead of what, we could say, please come and share with what you'd like.
Yeah, and somewhere along the line, I don't know that it's in this, but back to my earlier comment, it's going to change. And And you, the community, have some opportunity today to help craft that change. If you don't do it, if we don't collectively do it, we're gonna find ourselves with a statute, an RSA that says that thou shalt, and it will not, and you will not, we will not have the opportunity to create consistency or flow, or whatever you want to call it, continuity in how our community develops over time.
And I almost wonder if we're focusing too much on the look, the aesthetic portion of it, because, I mean, this conversation is really much larger than that, and how do we want our town to, continue to thrive? It's not just the look.
Maybe that's the word you use.
Yeah, I think so.
Thrive.
I think so.
That's a great word.
I mean, because for anybody who's been here within the last 10 years, they know the hospital struggled. Anybody who's been here within the last 15 years knows the college struggled. And, I mean, we can keep stepping back all the years that we've had setbacks. King Ridge was huge. Nobody anticipated that kind of impact at all.
Good points. Okay. How do we get this done? Kelsey needs you need the wording.
Yeah, I would just need the note exactly what we want to include from the bullet points.
You didn't get that all?
I got some of it. I took some notes.
Well, no,
Agree on what those are? What do you think?
I can tell you the 5 that I circled. I don't know if that's
Are we doing 5? I mean,
I don't know. That I just circled one from each section. I don't know if that's what you,
Oh, of the ABCs, you circled one from each section?
of the 1, 2, 3s.
Adam,
Or yes, one one A, B, or C from the 1, 2, 3s.
So
Okay.
that's
There's
what
a
I meant,
song
because
like that.
I thought that we
Starting
were
at the
gonna
top.
include all 5. I thought we were only
oh,
gonna.
no.
And maybe that
We
is.
hadn't come up with all 5 yet.
Right.
let's see what it's looked like. Let me try this out and tell me how this, I'm trying to get all this together in one place, and it's hard to read my own handwriting sometimes. But I guess what we're saying
Those are the same.
is that the wording to the right of the discovery emoji is generally okay. Adam has some suggestions as to how the 5 points, if we decide to use all of them, we may not, and some salient facts could then be woven in shortly after that. We then have something in the middle that's eye-catching or that will be enough to get attention. Then there's the next emoji, which is the visioning emoji, and then it'll end without the pathways emoji, but a reference to the fact that there will be a last stage, a last opportunity when we start to look at pathways. Does that sound about right? Am I getting that? Yep. Okay. Okay, and to Mike's point, well taken, is emphasizing the you as the community. And that, I'm not sure we can say this, but the flavor is, things are changing and your help is needed to envision how it is that New London will thrive.
Right.
Does that
Yeah.
sound about right?
I would only add to that, I think our, not using phase one paragraph could be distilled to, in November, we learned, colon,
Right,
3 bullet points below it.
November,
And,
right.
Rising housing costs,
Well,
too
yeah.
few units, whatever we want to say in as few words
Lack of
as possible.
diversity, rising costs, inventory, and vacancy. Those are the 3
Right.
crucial.
Yeah, I think the others are sort of supportive to those 3 points. You know, the aging housing stock.
and Having a supporting icon for each bullet
Yep.
point, and that probably would do it.
But not the third. The third,
Not-
I would
not-
say we
Icon.
could just we're getting rid of I would say get rid of the pathways.
Right.
For now.
Reference.
For now, yeah.
For now.
Talk about it at the
I'm just
meeting
thinking,
at the end of
under
the meeting.
discovery, you can use the discovery icon, and then just say, in November, we learned, colon, and then 3 bullet
Okay.
points. And then we can have the visioning icon for the second paragraph where, to Mike's point, we make it all about being inclusive.
yep.
But it
Oh, yep.
won't really be a paragraph.
Well, right.
It's that spacing of a paragraph, but it's not a bunch of sentences and words.
So we're not asking you to do the drafting, but just so you hear what's going on, and we'll get to you, and you'll then be trying to fit it in. So we have to tailor the wording even more necessarily to make it fit space and graphics. So that'll be your wizardry, and for which we're grateful.
I like this layout.
Do or don't?
I do like this layout. The pictures, these guys over to one side. Not use a whole line for them, just put them on one side of our bullets.
So my question is, as I'm just thinking about the booklet of the shopper, Kelsey, are we better off to have these icons on the outside of the binding? So if it's on the left page, it would be on the left, and if it's on the right page, it would be on the right of the wording?
So we can try to request specific spacing in the shopper, but they don't guarantee it. So whether or not we put it on the left hand or the right side is really irrelevant, because they're going to put the page where they want it to be. So
Okay. But isn't
I
it
think
true?
the question is it better to have this stuff on the outside of the page? Or if it's on, okay, so if
right,
it's on
the issue
page
is
2, it's okay over here, but if it's on page 3, this is the fold.
right. So, but we don't know which side it's going to be
So
on. Is the
they
problem.
Oh, okay, so
They
we
should
can't
have
say,
a-
if you're gonna do it this way, do
Yeah,
this.
can you do that?
Right, but they put it on the right-hand page, and
So they won't, so they can't flip these over here and when they put it on
You
page.
tell Howard where we want it.
I've tried that. It doesn't always work, but it might for this instance.
Well, let me ask you, from a effectiveness standpoint, isn't it true that the right side of an open book is more viewed than the left side?
Yes, because
No
it's
matter
where your
which-
thumb
we
sits.
No matter
pref-
which side it's on.
So we can play a little game and say, would you please put it on the right, because that's where our icons are, and see if it gets pulled along,
I
right?
can definitely ask. It doesn't hurt, so.
Okay.
And sometimes they will. So sometimes they're very nice, but sometimes they just don't have the space, depending on how they've laid stuff out already.
So my second question is human behavior driven. In our country, we read left to right. So is it better to have the icon on the left anyway, because we read left to right?
Not necessarily.
No?
Because sometimes you want the icon to be the secondary information, not the primary.
Yeah.
So sometimes you want to lead with the text and end with the icon.
Okay.
So,
You can figure that out.
Also
All right.
bear in mind that these are not going to be in color, so probably want to
Right.
make sure that they can translate to black and white and
Yes.
still look good.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so Adam, old buddy, I guess you and I are up to putting this together.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sort of working
What
on it.
else are you gonna do while
Couple
you're
of-
driving around taking pictures?
Well, we have to do it before that.
say, hopefully they're doing it before that.
Yeah.
I won't take the dogs for a walk, it's okay. I'm just kidding. Okay, I think that gives us what we need to know. Thank you for your
Wait, are
candid.
we in agreement about what those 3 bullet points are?
No?
No, we're going to send you a draft.
Okay.
Unless you want to go through those?
No,
Well-
no,
No.
no.
No? Okay.
This is already
Move on.
absorbed by committee.
Move on.
Okay, we'll take a stab at it, and you can tell us. We'll do it. So we covered all of that, shopper, et cetera. New business. I have saved the date flyers that I printed out and passed some around. Did everybody get some? You can spread them around. Nancy, did I give you a couple? These are in color, so hand them around to friends or churches or school meetings or whatever. Amy, everybody get some?
Yeah.
And do you have some? You got it?
I'll get some in a minute.
Okay.
Do we have one in grounds yet? Just out of curiosity.
I'm wondering if we
Grounds?
could leave
I don't think so.
All right. Yeah, I'll
Take some more.
know Teddy pretty well.
I'm wondering if
I am going, I spoke with Michael Todd, as I said I was going to. We had talked at one point about a rolling video on a screen at town meeting on the evening of the 12th. Michael is a bit in, I don't want to say panicked mode, but he's a little nervous in the throat when I talk to him, because they may have to change the registration flow. Nancy, you may be aware of this, of how you come into
they
the
have totally
audit.
changed it. I mean, it's gonna be unusual.
And it may change again based on what he needed to do today to go walk the space and figure out various things. So I said, well, it sounds like a video's not going to work. Would it be okay if somebody in the commission were to just hand these out?
Yeah.
His comment was, we have to be careful because you can't put somebody in the way of a path so somebody feels compelled to listen before they go into the meeting. So this is not promotional. He said we might be able to find a place for you, a niche somewhere where you could stand, and if somebody wanted to take one, they could. I said, fine, let me know. Whatever you think we can do we'll work with it. And so I sent this graphic to Flash Photo, and I'll next go meet with them after this meeting to see if we can get it put up on a big board, on a tripod, and if it needs to be sort of out in the corner, at least we've got something that gets their attention. And if somebody comes over, we can hand them a brochure, this flyer. So,
So have you been in the layout of the school?
no.
It's so changed. Have you been in, Kelsey? They have totally blocked off the ability to enter into those double doors
That we used to.
into the gym.
Oh,
They have now made it so there's only one door unlocked, and it funnels right by and they're not gonna change this, right by the office secretary who sits at the window. This is strictly security for the school.
I get it.
And behind the other side of that, plexiglass or whatever it's made out of, I could see that at the end of the meeting, we have something set up that people can take these to walk out with. More than try to hand them out before the meeting. People are gonna be very focused on the meeting. We are gonna be trying to funnel them all through the end door where we come in for our meetings. And the registration to vote is gonna be in the old cafeteria. I don't know how else to describe it. We always use as a meeting room. And then you're walking down with your tickets to the gym. And the gym's doors are gonna be controlled. You have to have tickets in hand to get into the gym. We don't want the audience from all over other towns to come in. Not that they have in droves in the past, but if there's any votes, we can't control that. And we've known that they can yell very loud. They're trying to make this look as close as they can to the cusp of it only being New London voters that are actually participating.
So where's registration going to be?
In where we normally meet,
Okay.
in that big room, there's gonna be
So
six.
people will walk in where we normally go into our meetings?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what I was saying earlier.
Okay,
That's not gonna change. That's not gonna change.
okay.
So the parking is all at that other end and out behind the school. People will park up further, they'll have a long way to walk, but they won't on the way out. Where we used to
Pray for
park.
good weather.
So, note to DPW, that all has to be heavily salted and sanded. Or you're gonna have,
And they're very aware of it, the police and the fire and the DPW are all there.
okay,
For the initial, and the police and the fire at least will stay till the very end, so we have outside lighting. Because
that's the other problem.
Yep, no, they're very, I've done nothing but beat a drum about that.
But Peter, to your point, and given everything that she's talking about that's going to happen, having sort of a tripod thing on the way out, that means people have left most of their concerns and their anxiety inside with their votes. They're ready to go home. We can get them there if we can get them, but I think you're right, something on a tripod.
Yep, and if you want, and somebody can stand there, once the major bond question is answered, people are gonna leave.
Yeah.
They're not gonna stay for the rest of the meeting. We can have people just standing there saying, do you wanna know, we're continuing to talk about housing. Take this with you so you know when the date is, type of thing. I can't commit to that because I'm committing to being on the registration side of this whole election.
Okay, well, that's good. Just alerting you what I'm willing to do. If anybody wants to join me in this task, I would welcome the opportunity, either in stages or
We have
together, whatever.
Halloween costumes you can wear. They'll remember us.
No candy.
The candy is ahead of time. It'll be inside as you
That's it.
vote.
Okay. So that's that. I did want to stress, I sent to you by email some events that are coming up for continuing education. You can go back to that email, but I will stress that the one, Nancy, I think you sent that to me, the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute webinar, the State of Housing, What the Current Data Tells Us. That looked pretty interesting. And also, Vital Communities webinar is coming up on water, wastewater, and housing. And that looked pretty interesting, too. It's all free, and it's a webinar, but they're all, they have messages. And I'm going to try to go to the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority Homeownership Conference, because I do it every year, but I've got a conflict that I'm not sure I can resolve. That just reminded me.
Adam, I mean, Peter, do you have those sort of in one place?
In an email, he put it
Just-
in one place.
And is that all I can't find half his emails.
It's
You
the
can't?
most
Because
recent
I
email.
think they've strung together, and I've discarded some of the early, I thought I discarded the early ones, and I think I wiped out a whole bunch of them.
It's just in the most recent email towards
I'll
the
send it to,
end.
I'll send it to you again.
And
But
if you updated your iPhone in the most recent update, it probably is consolidating them because there's
Yes.
a new mail cleaning feature.
Yes, and it's
So,
very
If
difficult.
you're in the office tomorrow, I can help you.
Oh, good.
but
I'm in the house almost every day today, this week.
I'll send it to you again, because I was thinking the same thing. And so what I did was I created a link on each one of these bullet points, so
Okay.
you can click on it and it
Yep.
takes you to that page.
Especially since it's a web thing. Those are
Yeah.
easy to sit and watch.
I'll send it to you again, so that you have it.
Thank you.
So that's good.
Even if you're just listening to it. you're-
There are nobody here from the public. Current housing update, I spoke with, or emailed with the Housing Appeals Board. Adam, you had sent me a legal notice saying that both parties have agreed to lift the stay of the court case, so it's being scheduled for a hearing. The Housing Appeals Board said it's not been rescheduled yet.
Oh.
So there's no date, but it will be heard now by the Housing Appeals Board. So that's good. As to the water precinct, I have no update, except their annual meeting is coming up.
It is.
It's after hours. I've forgotten the date.
It's whatever day the zoning board was supposed to meet because we canceled the meeting to allow them to use this space. So, March 18th.
March 18th.
And
So
it's in this room.
And what is that again?
what time is that, do you know?
Yeah, but what is, it's just their board
That's the
meeting?
annual, it's their annual meeting.
Their annual-
Because they are essentially a precinct, just the
Yeah.
way the town is,
Yeah,
I mean, not a precinct, a municipality, they have to have an annual town meeting.
so the public can go to that.
The shareholders, the people who were in the precinct.
So as long as you're a registered voter in the precinct, you have a vote.
But you need to be in the precinct.
Correct.
But New London is in the precinct.
But
not
you
every
yourself.
Only if you're on water.
So you're
But
where
I
you
am.
correct.
Or could be.
Right,
So.
Yeah.
good point.
Right. There are some properties that don't have a connection, but you own the property, and it has to be a residential property. You can't get a vote owning a commercial.
Okay, lastly, as to future meetings, of course, town meeting is coming up. We're meeting again on the 17th at the SAU Center. That will be the primary planning meeting when RP&D, our consultants, will be there. By the way, Mark Fougere is hard at work in his preparation of, I would call it an impact study, and also understanding impacts on the town with respect to schools and taxes, trying to understand if housing is built in New London, what does it do in those realms? And he's getting real data, he's working with the school districts, and he's working hard on it, so. My gut tells me that between March 17th and April 5th, we may need to have another meeting to gear up for the 5th. But I'll schedule that as quickly as possible in advance, so we all know. And that's all I have. Any new business? How we doing, all right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Seconded, all in favor?
They can't,